Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to strengthen transport safety and efficiency, from improving active mobility safety to tightening enforcement against illegally modified vehicles and streamlining the collection of missed ERP charges. These are important objectives and I support them. But as we consider these changes, we must remain clear-eyed about who will be most affected on the ground, especially our workers, many of whom depend on our transport system, not just to get around, but to earn a living. I declare my interest as the Assistant Secretary General of the NTUC, advisor to the National Delivery Champions Association, or what we call the NDCA, and Executive Secretary to the National Transport Workers Union. Mr. Speaker, I recognize the intent behind the enhanced regulations on PMAs, including reducing the speed limit from 10 kilometers per hour to 6 kilometers an hour, introducing size limits, mandatory registration, and the certificate of medical need. These measures are meant to improve safety for all footpath users, and that is a goal we all share. But how we implement them matters. We must be careful not to unintentionally place additional hardship on persons with genuine, often permanent mobility impairments, many of whom rely on PMAs to undertake delivery work as their primary and sometimes only source of income. For our riders, platform work is not a convenience. It is a hard-won path to financial independence. First, the reduction in PMA speed limits will lengthen delivery times. For riders who are already pushing themselves daily, those extra minutes compound quickly. Fewer completed jobs means lower earnings, and for riders living close to the edge, even a modest drop in income can translate into real trade-offs between food, utilities, or even medical needs. Media reports have already highlighted concerns that riders' earnings may be significantly affected, and these reflect what we are hearing consistently on the ground through our union engagements. Madam Farhana binti Ahmad Mashon, the General Secretary of the National Delivery Champions Association, is herself a mother of 6 and soon to be a grandmother. She fully supports the intent behind these safety measures, especially to protect young children who may be too small to be seen easily by riders and are particularly vulnerable to careless riding. At the same time, Hannah is also a full-time delivery rider who relies on her PMA for her work. Based on her experience, she expects her earnings to fall by 30 to 40% under the 6 km per hour speed limits if incentives and work conditions are not adjusted by the platform operators. These illustrates the real tension we must address between improving safety and ensuring that riders who depend on this work are not pushed into financial hardship. As worker representatives, our platform work associations, including the NDCA, have raised these concerns directly with platform operators. We have since obtained commitments and in-principle agreements from platform partners through bilateral negotiations to review delivery targets and work arrangements for our full-time PMA riders so that safety improvements do not come at the expense of livelihoods. I also urge the government to work closely with platform operators to monitor post-implementation impact and to be prepared to offer targeted transitional support if hardship emerges. Mr. Speaker, we support the safety intent, but safety improvements should not disproportionately penalize those who depend on PMAs the most. Second, while I support the certificate of medical needs to prevent abuse, the criteria must not be so rigid that deserving users are excluded. Medical needs are not always binary. Mobility challenges exist on a spectrum. We should avoid overly narrow thresholds that unintentionally create new barriers for those who genuinely need PMAs for safe and independent mobility. In our engagements with our PMA riders, we see a wide range of profiles and needs. Some, like Ms. To Bitin, a familiar name to many in this House, as she was a para-table tennis athlete, are born with mobility disabilities and rely entirely on their PMAs, not just for mobility, but for their delivery livelihoods. Others, like Ms. Siti Sabarina, turned to a PMA after suffering a serious leg injury from a delivery cycling accident last year. While she is on the path to recovery, she is still unable to walk independently over longer distances. For riders like her, the concern is not just access today, but the longevity and viability of a significant PMA investment under the new regulatory framework. These examples remind us that eligibility should be guided by real functional needs, not narrow thresholds. As we tighten safeguards against misuse, we must also ensure that those who genuinely depend on PMAs for safe, independent mobility and to earn a living are not left behind. Mr. Speaker, there is also the issue of cost. Medical certification can range from $50 to $100, which is significant for lower-income riders. To support our members, the National Delivery Champions Association will provide financial assistance to help subsidize and co-pay out-of-pocket compliance costs arising from this act. This includes expenses such as medical certifications and installations of attached-on speedometers. In addition, NDCA is in discussion with affiliate GP partners to make medical assessment and certification more affordable and accessible. These efforts reflect our shared commitment to uphold road safety while also protecting the dignity and sustainability of those who rely on PMAs to earn an honest living. I also ask the government to consider additional support measures, especially for riders like Siti, who are recovering from health conditions and will eventually need to transition out of PMAs. Support during this transition period is important so that recovery does not come at the cost of livelihoods. In addition, I seek the government's consideration for assistance with the purchase of essential equipment such as speedometers, which will be critical in helping our riders comply with the new speed limits. Finally, I ask the ministry to clarify whether polyclinics will also be able to issue the required medical certificates so that costs can remain affordable and accessible for those who need PMAs the most. Third, while I appreciate the advance notice given since 2024 and the meaningful consultations with the NDCA, I urge an education-first approach during the initial enforcement. Some users will need time to adapt, whether to speed limits, device requirements, or certification rules. Reasonable grace periods and room for discretion, especially for genuine mistakes, will go a long way in ensuring compliance without undue stress. Clear rules matter, but compassionate implementation matters just as much. The NDCA has engaged riders extensively across Singapore, not just in meeting rooms, but where our riders actually work and rest. These sessions covered recruitment, rider safety, enforcement issues, CPF clarifications, last-mile delivery challenges, and discussions with LTA and our platform operators. This feedback is not abstract. It reflects lived realities, and this is why NDCA continues to work closely with platform operators through the tripartite framework to mitigate livelihood impact while complying to these new rules. We thank our platform operators like Grab, who have given in-principle assurances to adjust performance targets, and NDCA will continue to support riders through the transition to defray costs, including MCs and device modifications. Mr. Speaker, this is how lives, livelihoods, safety, dignity at work go hand in hand the tripartite way. Turning to electric buses, I support the amendments to Section 6 of the LTA of Singapore Act 1995, recognizing the promotion and regulation for the safe use of EVs. In Mandarin, please. 到2030年，电动巴士会占我们公共巴士车队的一半，这不是一件小事，而这条路能不能走得稳，最重要的还是我们的巴士车长。现在公司都有给培训，但每家的安排不一样。人手紧的时候，培训的时间也会压缩。可是巴士车长不一样，我们开的是大车，系统复杂，载的是乘客，责任非常沉重。有车长跟我说，开动巴士除了要习惯新设备和路线，还要一直在看屏幕，不像以前主要看后视镜。时间一长，眼睛很累，有些甚至会头晕，这不是一个小问题。所以我想问路交局能不能考虑为电动车设立统一、清楚、 一定要上的培训，让车长在转用电动巴士的时候心里有底，路上更安全。Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the issue of speed limiters for lorries. Road safety must always remain our top priority. Measures that protect lives on our roads are necessary, and I recognize fully the intent behind mandating speed limiters for heavy vehicles. This intent is also understood and broadly supported by the fleet operators and lorry owners whom I have spoken with. That said, as with many transport policies, the real test lies not in the intent, but actually in the implementation. One key concern raised by drivers and operators relates to speed differentials on our expressways. Passenger vehicles may travel at up to 90 kilometers per hour, while heavy vehicles are kept at 60 kilometers per hour. This wide gap can disrupt traffic flow, leading to frequent overtaking, sudden braking, and in some cases, paradoxically increasing accident risks rather than to reduce them. Another concern is enforcement consistency. Local operators who comply with speed limiter requirements may find themselves disadvantaged when foreign-registered heavy vehicles, which may not be subjected to the same standards, continue traveling at higher speeds. This creates uneven road behavior and undermines both safety objectives as well as fair competition. Mr. Speaker, my point is not to revisit the policy intent, but to emphasize that implementation must be holistic. Speed limiters alone cannot deliver safer roads. They must be complemented by consistent enforcement, clear lane discipline, and policies that reflect the realities of mixed traffic conditions. I therefore urge the relevant ministries to continue engaging drivers and operators to apply enforcement with judgment and to ensure that implementation remains practical, fair, and grounded in real-world conditions so that our roads are not just regulated, but genuinely safer for everyone. Mr. Speaker, with this point raised in the spirit of fairness, safety, and grounded implementation, I support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Bartley Fauzi.